So we're going to do a step that I kind of forgot about, which is we're going to go ahead and solder a wire onto the center point of the potentiometer, which is the iris. That's this pin right there. All right. So in order to make this actually work, you have to solder in your own pins. Now there's a reason why I have these guys included in the build part list, because you're going to actually make your own custom pins. In order to do that, you need a little heat shrink. You need to cut one of these off, and you're just going to solder it to the wire. And these pins are super small, they're compact, they allow you to have a bunch of them inside here without interfering. So we're going to just go ahead and, yep, we have a little bit of heat sink on there. We're going to solder these pins together like so. And also, this is another thing to note. We are currently putting the hot and the ground pins on separate lines. We are not soldering them to here. These pins are very crucial. You don't want them to get any electrical interference from anything. So they're going to be on their own separate hot and ground lines. Very cool. So now that you have everything wired, we're actually going to do the same thing for every single wire in here. Every single wire is going to get its own mini pin. And before, I would have recommended that we solder stuff to the board, but again, just in case we decide to upgrade later in the future, we're going to just make sure every single pin or every single wire has its own individual pin. But we will measure out those lengths in a little bit. Our next step is to wire in the last potentiometer, which is this guy. Unfortunately, mine didn't arrive in time. The process will still be the same for you no matter what. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. The next thing we're going to be working on is the outside connection port. This is a 7-pin, basically connector that just kind of screws into your Mimic, and it provides power as well as data. It's probably the most complicated part of the whole build, so we're going to go ahead and zoom in here, and I'm going to walk you through soldering it. The soldering itself is pretty basic. You have to just make sure, again, your soldering iron is really hot. These pins on the back here really hate you, me specifically. They hate me specifically for choosing them to be the vehicle for our wiring schematic. So what we're going to do is, if you have these claws, it will really help first of all, but if you have these claws, you're going to go ahead and mount it in here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the hot, okay? You're going to need 2 red wires. One red wire is going to have an end that is open, and the other red wire doesn't matter because you're going to cut it off. So, again, same thing as before. We're just going to peel these wires away. Tin our wires as per usual. Do the same biz. You're soldering iron in this pin first, as long as you can, just to get it really hot. It doesn't care that much about anything in terms of heat. The plastic's pretty robust. This is a done one right here. It looks like this. There's going to be a picture that I have also that shows you kind of what they look like, and I'll just follow through with like the video of me soldering it. But basically, you're going to have your 2 top pins, which is your hot and your ground. Your hot and your ground at the top both have these very important connectors on them. This is so that you can connect the battery to the Mimic, okay? These 2 wires right here are your voltage in and your ground. Okay, very important. And these 2 wires here are your TX and RX inputs. They go from the Mimic to the, Arduino words. So we're going to go ahead and get started on soldering the female of it, all right? So as you're holding this, make sure you're holding it so that the center pin is obviously center, and then there's a space in between the 2 top parts, okay? Good. Yep. So as you're holding this, make sure you have a space, your pin in the center. We don't use that pin. That pin is just for reference and spacing so that we don't kill ourselves when we're trying to wire this stupid thing. So you're going to have your 2 pins at the top and a space in between them. That's for the 7-pin connector. All right. So we're going to take our red wire, and we're going to make sure that we have heat shrink already inside it, and we're going to tin the top of this. These things suck at tinning. They really do. You need to have it pretty hot. I have mine at about 370, 380, give or take. I don't know how accurate this dial is, but we're going to go ahead and just give it a good old solder. Why? Okay. And give that a good old-fashioned solder. Our next step is going to be the next red and black pins. These guys, you can take wires off both sides. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and strip these little fuckers. Cool. So we have our two power connectors all wired up and ready to go. This one's not shorter for any reason besides the fact it's the last one I have. So you do what you can. Okay, so we have these two power connectors done here. And we're going to take a yellow and green wire specifically. Anything else or less I will not accept. And I have them right here. And we're going to take this yellow and green wire. And we're actually going to more or less cut these in half because I'm almost out of yellow and green wires. Cool. Again, heat shrink everything. Make sure you keep your wires separate. And again, another specific reason why we do this is because these wires actually kind of ram right against the joystick, and we don't want any electricity or anything interfering with the joystick. That is the priority output of all inputs because that is the thing that controls the camera. And if you mess up a shot, again, not on me. Please don't be mad. I'm very sorry. I tried my best. So now that we've finished the female version of the connector, we're going to go work on our male version of the connector. This is by far the most annoying part. Not because the wiring is hard or anything, it's just annoying because it's like, oh, okay, look at all these different wires that I'm trying to figure out go where. It'd be great if I had some documentation. You do now. I made it. You're welcome. Thank you. I'm probably going to make my cable about this long because it's going from the controller to the Movi Mimic. And it provides the power, it provides the data, it provides all the essential ingredients. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. See that? No remorse. I don't even care. So you can tell the right side because of this little notch in it. You can see it has like a little lever, and that's the locking mechanism that goes into the Mimic itself. You're going to take away the 5th cable. You don't need it, all right? Again, far right, don't need it. You're going to go ahead and, I don't know, you can remove it if you want, you can cut it. I personally like to take out the pin just so it's a little cleaner. And you do that by getting a sharp little object under the pin connector and just kind of yeeting it up out of there. Bam, gone. Don't even need to worry about it. Push that back down. Cool. Now that you've done that, you have your 4 connectors remaining, okay? One on the far right is the TX1 pin. The one on the one after it, the right middle one is the RX1 pin. The one after that, to the middle left, excuse me, I'm so sorry. The one in the middle left is the voltage in, and the one on the far left is the ground. Again, lever facing you and up, facing you and up. Okay. Cool. All right. So now that we have these pins aligned like this, we're going to go ahead and move on to wiring up our connection here. So again, I'm going to use the same color heat shrink so that we don't get super confused, because I hate it when I'm super confused. It happens very often, so I'm just a very hateful person. Anyway, make sure you keep this tab facing up so that you have everything as a reference. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our first ground pin, which is, again, this wire that's on the opposite side. That's why we keep them connected, so you can kind of tell what the heck is going on in there. And we're going to put this over on this side underneath the top left pin. As we go along, we're just going ahead and heat shrinking this, but you don't have to do that. You can heat shrink them all when you're done. I just do this because it helps me keep track of what I already did. All right, our next color is green for the RX pin. The RX pin is to the right again of the hot or the red, and that is going to go on the, oh, let's check it out here. Cool. And then the one after that is the yellow. Okay, that is a very well wired pin setup. So now you'll notice we have these two top pins which are still open, and those are our power supply out pins to the Mimic. Hey guys, Future Kaz again. Basically, I effed this up, and the USB-C connectors that I have listed, or I had listed, they're gone now, suck, and I don't recommend using them. So what you should do is you should just find a USB-C cable you don't care about, or go to like a local store and grab one for like a few dollars and just cut it open, take the red and black leads and solder them into the two leftover pins. I screwed that up. It's just not worth the hassle of those tiny little PCBs, and I apologize.